Hey guys, we've got a brand new national poll that just came out today. It's the only national poll that we've gotten out today, the day after the fifth round of the Democratic debates. Now, of course, the results that we get in this particular national poll aren't going to be factoring in what happened in last night's debate, given the fact that it was taken in the days leading up to that result. As we can see that this one was taken between November 17th through the 20th. But overall, the numbers in this Emerson poll are extremely positive for the Bernie Sanders campaign, and we'll run through all those numbers, starting with the head-to-head matchups between these four upper-tier Democratic hopefuls and Donald Trump. And the only one that's beating Trump in this Emerson poll is Bernie Sanders, where he has a 1-point lead, 50% to 49%, where Warren is tied with Trump at 50% apiece. Biden is losing to Trump by 2 percentage points. And then Buttigieg doing the worst, losing to Trump by 4 points. And the Biden campaign, it seems like they're hanging their hat on the fact that he is the strongest head-to-head with Donald Trump. But as things have moved along, really that narrative has been shifting a little bit away from Biden. And in this poll, we're seeing that he's only the third best in the head-to-head against Trump and actually losing to him by a couple of percentage points. And overall, this should be a pretty positive poll for Donald Trump, given the fact that if we take a look here, out of this sample, 48% approve of the president compared to 47% who disapprove. So he's actually above water in his overall approval in this national poll. And that's outside of what we get in terms of the average overall of Donald Trump's approval. So with that framing in mind going into these head-to-head matchups, you would expect Trump to perform a little bit better, but Sanders still outperforming Trump by 1 percentage point, where the other candidates are either tied or losing to the current president. So that's the first bit of really good news for Bernie Sanders, as his camp really needs to start putting a dent into this narrative from the Biden camp that says that they are the strongest head-to-head with Trump, because we have started to see a trend line where more of these polls are starting to show Sanders do at least as well or better than what Biden is doing head-to-head with Donald Trump, not just nationally, but in a lot of these state-specific results as well. So then we go down and take a look at the 2020 Democratic primary and caucus, and of those voters, Bernie Sanders jumping up into a tie for first place along with Joe Biden, each at 27%. Now, last month's Emerson national poll, Sanders was losing to Biden by a couple of percentage points, and that was after he had taken quite a bit of a step up from where his numbers were the month prior in September. But we see Sanders now gaining a couple points up to 27, in a tie for first with Biden, and then behind them, in a strong third place there, we have Warren at 20%, and then the rest of the field taking quite a step back from those top three individuals back into the single digits, where you have Buttigieg at 7%, Andrew Yang at 4%, and that's how the top five rounds out. Behind Yang, we have Harris at 3%, Tulsi Gabbard at 2%, along with Tom Steyer. And then in the 1% range, we have Klobuchar, Booker, Castro, Bloomberg, and Sestak. And then everyone else is at 0 percentage points. And those two centrist candidates that threw their hat in the ring at the last second, that would be Bloomberg only registering 1%, and Deval Patrick down here registering 0 percentage points. So not getting off to the best start for those individuals. But if there is a situation where Bloomberg and Patrick start to gain some momentum in the polls, it probably hurts Biden more than anyone else of these top candidates. So that could be a possible situation where it could propel Sanders into a lead by himself. We'll see if that is the case or not as we get more Emerson polls out in the future, if these centrists who threw their hat in the ring late are able to gain any momentum. So then I also want to go through and take a look at some of these demographics and how they break down. So in terms of the younger voters, those under the age of 50, this is where Sanders does his best with 37% support leading the way, followed by Warren at 22%, Biden at 15%, and Andrew Yang at 7%. And then those voters that are older than the age of 50, this is where Biden dominates the pack, where he's at 44%, followed by Warren at 16%, Sanders at 13%, Buttigieg at 12%. All right, now to go down and take a look at some other demographics in terms of the race of these particular voters. So Sanders did the best among Hispanic and Latino voters, leading the pack at 36 points, followed by Biden, who's at 23, Warren at 22. And Sanders actually also did the best among white voters in this poll, where he's at 29%, followed by Biden and Warren, who are each at 21%. And then the African-American vote is where Biden continues to do well. That's where his strongest support comes from at 42 points, Warren at 18, Sanders at 17, and Buttigieg at 7%. percentage points. And then in terms of the ideology, those who identified as very liberal, Sanders did the best with those at 45%. And then to go down, those who said that they were moderate or conservative, that's where Biden did his best at 39% of those individuals. And then just a couple of other demographic categories here. So those who supported Hillary Clinton back in 2016 are going for Biden at a 40% clip, followed by Warren at 19 and Sanders and Buttigieg each at 12. But those who went for Sanders back in 2016 are still supporting him at a 48% clip, followed by Warren at 23 and Biden at just 14. And then the last little section here that I want to talk about, and another very positive sign overall for Sanders, and this is also something that we consistently see in a lot of these polls, and that is, how committed are you to your first choice? So with Bernie Sanders supporters, they are the most committed, and they are so at 71% of his supporters are saying that they are definitely going to vote for him. So that means that they're, in terms of Sanders' current numbers, there's a pretty high floor to where he could go down to, but still have that committed support, whereas the other candidates could slip a bit further, given the fact that those who are committed to Biden, that number's at just 60%, that number's at just 46% for Elizabeth Warren, and then that number is 31% for Buttigieg. So that means we could get a situation. So let's just say a hypothetical. We go into the first state of Iowa, and Bernie Sanders is able to surge in that state down the stretch. He's able to have a surprise positive result like maybe he had back in 2016, where he went 50-50 with Hillary Clinton, even though that's not what the polls were exactly saying. So let's just say in this hypothetical, Sanders ekes out a victory in Iowa. Well, then the states after that, maybe some of these other candidates who don't have quite as strong support, maybe they think, well, Sanders, he's gotten off to a good start, so maybe I'm going to go over and support him because I want to vote for the person that's more likely to go on and win this thing. So maybe he could peel off some of that Warren support, where less than 50% of her voters are committed to her. And then there's also a large chunk of Pete Buttigieg support, 69% of it are saying that they aren't committed to him yet. So there are definitely voters who have first choice of these other candidates where Sanders could maybe peel off from them and maybe go on and have a bit more success. So a lot of positive numbers coming out of this national Emerson poll for the Sanders campaign. The fact that he has the most committed supporters, the fact that he jumped into a first place tie in the Democratic primary and caucus with Biden, and on top of that, the only individual that had a head-to-head lead over Trump, 50% to 49%. If you want to look at this poll for yourself, I'll have a link posted down in the video description. And as we get more of these national polls coming out after this past debate that we just had last night, we'll get a glimpse into what kind of changes that we might get based on what happened in that particular debating result. But I don't feel like we're going to get all that much in the way of big sweeping changes. Everyone kind of was pretty steady in last night's debate, but we'll see if that is the case or not with these polls that continue to come out over the next couple of weeks. So I appreciate you guys stopping by. Consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, and I hope to see you guys back here for future videos.